Hey everyone, how's it going? In this video, we're going to be dropping, renaming, and adding columns. In my experience, being able to do these three functions is the most commonly used functions in Spark, outside of reading and writing, that is. But I think if you write in a Spark application, you'll probably be doing reading, renaming, and adding columns more often than you do the reading and writing. So you'll pick these up in no time. So what we want to do straight away is we're going to read in this data set, and we are going to list all the columns in that. Now, there's a few ways that we can drop columns, but first let me show you how many columns there are. There are quite a few. So when you say df.columns, it returns as a list, like a Python list object, and we can see there's quite a few. I actually don't want all that information. So what I want to do is drop a bunch of columns. One of the ways we do that is just to call df equals to df.drop and list out all the columns. The other way is to do it this way, where we put in all the columns that we want to drop as arguments into the drop function. So you can see that it does take a bit of time to do that. But if you've only got one or two columns to drop, this is probably a pretty neat way to do it. However, the method that I prefer when you have lots of columns to drop, and if you just want to keep a few columns, is to just use the df.select function. When you say df.select, all you need to do is provide just a few of the columns that you really want to keep, and it'll just make your code a lot shorter and honestly much easier to understand. So what we'll do is we'll say df is equal to df.select and name all the columns that we want, and then we'll do a df.display. And there we go. We only have the unit ID, incident number, call date, address, city, and zip code of the incident. Much more manageable to work with and a lot more relevant for what we want to do. Now, the renaming bit. There's quite a few reasons why you would want to rename columns. Most of it is just to make it more friendly for whoever's using the data set at the end of your pipeline. So here we notice that the column names are written with capital letters and has spaces in between. I prefer to work with lower cases and underscores. So what we want to do is we want to call df dot with column renamed. The first argument is always the existing column, and the second argument is what we want it to be. So what we do is let's go clean this up. What we do is we just call that, and what I've done here is I've actually just chained all these with column renamed calls one after another, and I've basically set that up already. And so if I run this, it submits it, and there we go. We just have all the same columns from before, but we've renamed them to be a lot nicer to look at. It's actually more of a standards thing than a subjective nice thing to look at. Now, I want to lastly add a column. Now, notice all this entire data set is actually based out of the USA. So all the cities, like American cities, cities from the USA. Now, suppose I want to take this data set and merge it with another data set from, say, Australia, where I'm from, or New Zealand, where I used to live. What we want to do is we want to be able to distinguish between each of the different countries you're in. So for starters, what we'll do is we'll add a country column. How we do that is we say df is equal to df.withColumn. Now in this situation, which is very different to the withColumn renamed, we actually provide the column of the country that doesn't exist as the first argument. So this is our target state. So we say this is the column that I'm creating, and the value for that column is going to be this. Lit means literal, and as you can see, we've imported that, and then we pass in whatever that string is, and we are now going to display that when we call df.display. So if we run that, what do we get? We get the same data frame from before, except we have a country column now, which is all hard-coded to USA. That's it. So that's how you add a column. You can rename a column, as well as drop or select columns. Thank you. I'll see you in the next video.